My mother did the deed with my husband and became pregnant with twins. They maintained their affair until I saw them in bed together on New Year's Eve, when I was nearly 7 months pregnant. I went public with everything. My mother lost her job and marriage and is now homeless. This is what occurred. Subscribe with notifications turned on. I am a 40-year-old female and my father is 63. My mother is 60 years old and they have been married for nearly 43 years. I have 6 siblings, including a 42-year-old sister, a 38-year-old sister, a 34-year-old sister, a 20-year-old brother, another 20-year-old brother, and an 18-year-old brother. I've been with my husband, who is 39 years old, since we were 15. I became pregnant when I was 17 and moved in with my parents. I gave birth to my now 22-year-old daughter and married at 18, just after my father's father died. Soon after our wedding, he bequeathed his ranch-style home to my father. My grandparents retired and built a house adjacent to my parents. My parents agreed to let us live in this house and promised us it would be my inheritance. My spouse and I had no problem with this. We went on to have a 20-year-old son, a 14-year-old daughter, and a 5-year-old daughter, and I'm presently 7 months pregnant with my last kid, a male due in April. I believed I had a good marriage. We were intimate more than twice a week, went on dates, exchanged gifts, and did not fight. My entire world was broken when, on New Year's Eve, I returned home early from a girls' trip with some pals. I walked into my bedroom and discovered my mother performing the act with my husband. My mother screamed at me to leave their bedroom, which shook me even more. Unfortunately, my oldest daughter was also at home, preparing for a party in her bedroom across the house. She dashed out and slammed the door on my mother, who was naked save for a bed cover. My daughter was heartbroken and visited my sister's house. I asked her not to say anything until I spoke to my husband. I asked him for the truth. He informed me that my mother seduced him when we were 18 and living at their house. They'd been performing the act unprotected, at least once a month, for longer than we'd been married. I did the arithmetic and was shocked since the timing indicated that my twin brothers and youngest brother would be my husband's. I quickly called my father and asked him to come to my house without my mother. I forced my spouse to confess, and my father was heartbroken. He and my mother were high school sweethearts too. We could clearly hear my mother screaming from her residence when he confronted her. I then notified my older sister, and she and I decided to have her organize a party for the entire extended family, including my ex's relatives. At the party, I had my 22-year-old daughter take all of the youngsters to our basement and show a movie, leaving only the adults and siblings. I explained exactly what they had been doing. The majority of my family supports me, with the exception of my 3 youngest siblings, my 38-year-old sister, and my ex's entire family. They all call me a jackass for doing this openly. Word spread, and my mum's best friend, who was on the leadership team at my mum's church, my childhood church, contacted me to confirm. My mother has subsequently been let go as the children's pastor there, and she claims I have damaged her reputation and life. My father kicked her out, and she's now living with my 38-year-old sister. Finally, my father insisted on a DNA test for the 3 youngest boys before proceeding with their marriage. The twins are my husband's biological offspring. I've now kicked him out, and he lives with his parents. My father and I are talking about me moving into his much larger house and him selling my grandfather's house, which will give me enough money to buy a new house somewhere to get rid of the memories. My husband is outraged and enraged that I showed he is about to have 7 children instead of 5, and that I will be stealing half of his business away from him. My husband launched his own HVAC firm a few years ago, and for the first 5 years, I helped him set it up, ran the office totally, and took time away from my teaching profession to help him get it going. In my state, all marital assets, including enterprises, are divided 50-50. Because the house was still in my father's name, neither my husband nor my mother will receive any proceeds from the sale, as inherited assets are not subject to division during divorce. My mother is likewise unlikely to receive alimony, because our state does not have no-fault divorce law. I'm now more than a month later, and still sad and angry with my mother, particularly her hypocrisy in labeling me a floozy and embarrassing my family when she's done far worse. I loathe my ex with everything in me right now. He was doing the act with both my mother and myself, sometimes returning to our bed minutes later. He got my mother pregnant less than a week after getting me pregnant, and while I thought it was cute and pleasant to share my pregnancy with my mother, she was carrying my children's half-siblings. He has broken all of my faith in men and their faithfulness. I've already hired a decent lawyer from the firm that assisted us with financial concerns for both myself and my father is helping pay for him. My twin brothers, one of my sisters, and my whole ex's family have stopped communicating with me, and my children have lost all of their grandparents, save for my father, 2 uncles, and an aunt on my side, as well as my husband's 3 brothers. As a result of this disaster, I've also gotten ulcers and intestinal troubles as a result of this, so I'll see a doctor shortly, and I've been in treatment since the first week of January. I've offered this to my 2 adult children if they require family treatment with all of us. but they're now pursuing individual therapy. My 14-year-old understands why we're being divorced, and she's so angry at her father that I struggle to send her to his house on weekends. I believe she is old enough to make a decision on this, but I do not want to jeopardize her connection with her father. I've told all of my children that it's all right to love their father, even if he's hurt them, but the two oldest have completely cut him off. I won't tell my youngest two why we split until they're adolescents, and everyone else has promised to keep it quiet until they're old enough to comprehend. As for how I had no knowledge this affair was going on, my husband verified to me that they would do it in my mother's office at church, in their cars, at a motel, and after we developed the business, they began doing it consistently at his office once I returned to teaching. They also kept it in our homes while my father went on business trips, or I was out of town. I returned home a day early from the trip due to discomfort from being nearly 7 months pregnant. I just wanted my own bed so I could find out. I'm still unhappy because I know they would have continued this full-fledged affair if I hadn't discovered them. What I can't get over is how little my children's grandmother and father cared about wrecking our family. What hurts me the most is that my own mother would do this to me and continue to do so for years, oblivious to the fact that she was hurting her entire family. To add insult to injury, my husband revealed in one of our mediated talks that the affair began when I allegedly made him upset. He didn't tell me and instead yelled with my mother when they were alone. She consoled him, and that is when they performed the crime. He loved it and chased her after that. He stated he would have divorced me but knew he'd be cut off from her, and she was far better at doing the deed than I was, so he continued with me. He said that I was a placeholder. Among all the betrayals and low blows, that statement is what keeps me awake at night. Who was the biggest jerk? An update from the future says, I tried to get a quick divorce, but my ex told me yesterday, through his lawyers, that he doesn't believe the baby I'm carrying is his and wants a DNA test as soon as he's born because he doesn't want to support a child who isn't his. He also feels that I habitually cheated on him during our marriage and that I was aware of his ongoing affair and used it as a pretext to pursue my own affairs. None of that is true, but I wish it were because it would make the divorce process easier. My lawyer basically told me to prepare for a long, drawn-out, painful, contentious divorce, and that my ex will most certainly use every underhanded method in the book to make my life even more miserable. Here are the answers to a couple queries addressed in the OP. My twin brothers resemble my egg donor side of the family. They look quite similar to my uncle and grandfather. They certainly do not look like my father, but neither do they resemble my husband. My son resembles my soon-to-be ex, and he is the only child that can be clearly identified as his, while my 14-year-old daughter has his nose and jaw shape. I was outraged the day everything happened, but my father talked me down and reminded me that I needed to think about my newborn and my other children before doing anything that would take both parents from their lives. That was what saved them. I remained in a wrath fog for the next 3 days, which culminated in the revenge party. I only regret not informing my brothers privately that my egg donor had cheated. I honestly don't know why my 38-year-old sister is on my egg donor's side. She does not get along with me or my sister, and she hasn't since high school. I'm not too worried about her. My twin brothers are furious because I announced the news publicly. That was when my father left them. They're also in therapy, and my father has encouraged me to give them time. He believes they are only killing the messenger. I didn't inform them about the potential that my ex was their father, but they did the math and discovered that they are the same age as my kid, who is younger than the duration of the affair. My father sat them down and explained that the reason for the DNA test was to establish cheating, not because he was leaving them. He is still their father, regardless of who fertilized the egg. I don't believe my egg donor and soon-to-be ex waited until he was 18 to do the deed. But at this point, I'm letting my father fight that battle and do whatever he needs to do when dealing with her and their divorce. I have contingency plans in place in case they decide to move in together, but my lawyer does not feel my ex is stupid enough to do so with the divorce procedures escalating. I neglected to mention this earlier. My husband is 4 months younger than myself. My birthday is in December and his is in April. He will turn 40 soon. We were in the same graduating class from kindergarten through high school. He isn't a whole year younger than me, as some have speculated. Today, I spoke on the phone with my aunt, my egg donor's sister, who informed me that there is a history of cheating in our family on their side. My grandmother cheated on my grandfather for years, but they reconciled. My aunt has had several emotional affairs, yet she is still married to my uncle. She tried to blame genetics for my mother's infidelity, and I laughed out loud at the silliness of that attempt to justify her affair, and my aunt is now upset with me for not hearing my egg donor's explanation for cheating. Dad and the lawyer both say I should hear her out, so I'm still thinking about doing so right before we meet in early March to establish custody. I should mention that I questioned my aunt about whether my mother acquired the floozy gene, who she passed it on to, and how my grandmother passed it on to both of her daughters. So that's presumably why she's angry. In retrospect, I honestly have no sympathy for cheaters after this. The final update to this issue began with a rehash of only the updates in which the OP stated that my ex accused me of being unfaithful because he was, and that he wanted a DNA test after our son was born. My aunt revealed many affairs on my egg donor's side of the family and attempted to argue that they were genetic and hereditary. My father and my lawyer pushed us to meet with my egg donor for evidence and closure, and this update focuses on the answers we received concerning her decisions when we did meet. So far, we haven't seen much of the mom's perspective throughout this whole situation, but this is where we get to see what the OP said. Yesterday evening, I met with my egg donor, my father, and our lawyers. Essentially, my egg donor stated that she knew it was bad, but enjoyed the publicity. It was nice to do the deed with my husband, and she relished the adrenaline rush. She kept sleeping with my father because she liked their financial security and carefree lifestyle and wanted to stay married. She purposefully slept with him following each contact with my ex, so that if she became pregnant, she could pass the child off. She also admitted to appreciating the fact that my ex enjoyed doing the deed with her rather than with me. She then stated that she is moving in with my ex to his new apartment and has invited the boys to reside with them. Since the affair became public, the twins have visited her once and informed her that they dislike my ex and refuse to treat him as if he were their father. She stated that once she marries my ex, they will gradually come around and she will be able to reunite with her family. I laughed aloud and informed her that she was insane and needed mental treatment. Then I informed her that I would be obtaining an order of protection against her so that she would have no access to my minor children. She branded me a jealous and ungrateful cow for not appreciating her decision not to terminate me and instead let me live. She then told me I should be grateful that they didn't kick me out when I arrived home drunk. She even had the audacity to remark that I should be grateful she kept my husband happy when I couldn't, so he wouldn't divorce me and leave me a sad and traumatized single mother. She then informed my father that she was suffering from postpartum depression after my birth, but he disregarded her and made her feel alone, so she felt justified in hating me and having affairs. She admitted to having many affairs between 6 months after my birth and New Year's Eve, and she indicated they'd continue to do so if I hadn't ruined everything. So my 38-year-old and 34-year-old sisters may not be my father's either. My father is even more sad and angry, but we had both of our lawyers present and got it on record. My father has already contacted my siblings, but to no one's surprise, my 38-year-old sister was already aware of the possibilities because my mother informed her of both affairs before the twins were born, and she realized they might not be my father's and kept it from us. My father is devastated, even more so than the loss of his relationship with my mother. I am not sure if the relationship will ever recover. I honestly don't know what is wrong with my 38-year-old sister. My 34-year-old sister refuses to take a paternity test and insists that our father will always be her father. My father is fine with that. I informed my ex through my lawyer that I will be filing an order of protection tomorrow so that my children do not have to go to my ex's house if my mother is present. Neither has sought to find new accommodation, so I'm guessing she's going to move into my ex-in-law's house. I don't want my children near that mess. He has yet to answer, but I don't really care what he wants. One major issue raised in the comments was, did your sister know that the egg donor was cheating with your husband specifically, or did she just know that the egg donor was cheating with someone? The OP stated that she knew it was my spouse, but didn't inform me or my father, which is why my father is unhappy with it. This entire story is just terrible. I can't imagine what it's like to spend your entire life with someone, especially since they met so young and built a life together, and then your own family, your mother, does the same and becomes pregnant with your husband's children. I mean, this is really sad. The husband and mother's callousness in this circumstance would be to waste the OP's time and life to have her go through all of this and eventually find out when they would never have told her otherwise and would never have simply left. The husband refused to divorce because he feared losing contact with the mother. In this scenario, the conduct of both of them goes far beyond selfishness. It's as if they don't even consider the existence of the OP. The only silver lining, if you can call it that, is the inheritance legislation, which allows them to keep the house, as well as the fact that the state is not no fault. In this situation, those are material goods, and I'm confident that the brutal mental damage surpasses everything. At the very least, there is no need to give away more than you really have to, and she appears to be taking over his HVAC firm. I can't get over how strange it is that both the husband and the mother take pride in the fact that the husband prefers the mother. That's odd, nasty, and just too much information. I mean, why did they need to mention that? What was the point of stating that if it was only to hurt the OP? I'm not sure what someone would do in such an intensive and long-lasting circumstance. Where do you go from here? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel with notifications on. And if you enjoy podcasts, check out the podcast as well. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.